Hey y'all, so last class we learned about slope-intercept form. Equations that give us the slope and the y-intercept. Today we're gonna learn about point-slope form. Let's get started. Today we have point-slope form. The formula is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. This formula tells us the slope, m, and one of the coordinate points our line is going to pass through. The number being subtracted from y is our first y value. The number being subtracted from x is our first x value. The number being multiplied by these parentheses is our m, our slope. Let's practice writing an equation given the slope and the point that our line passes through. I'm going to start off by writing the formula. We know m is the slope, and x1 is our x value, and y1 is the y value in our coordinate. So here I have slope, and I have the point x, comma, y. So now I'm going to bring down my y, minus my y value is 7, equals my slope value is 4/3, and in parentheses, I have x minus the x value they gave us was 3. And I'm going to close out the parentheses. Look, we just wrote an equation. Let's do it one more time. Let's bring down our formula. Again, we have our slope, we have our x1, and we have our y1. So written out, we have our y value, our slope, and our x value. Remember, coordinates are written as x, comma, y. So now I'm just going to replace all of these values with the numbers they gave us, so the slope and the coordinate point. So let's plug in our y value, our slope, and our x value. We're almost done, but right now I see a double negative. So I see minus a negative number. So I'm going to cancel that double negative and turn it into a positive. So our final answer is y minus 5 equals 3 times x plus 2. Now we're going to work backwards. We're going to identify the slope and the point that our line passes through. And we can find all that information just by looking at the equations. So we're looking for slope, our m, and our coordinate. Remember the formula. Y minus y1 equals m, notice I messed up a little bit, times x minus x1. So our m, our slope, is going to be 1/2. And our initial point is going to be x1, y1, which is 2, 3. When I'm deciding what numbers to put in and whether they're positive or negative, I'm always going to look at this sign and put the opposite of it. So in this case, I have positive 3 because that sign right there is subtracting, and then I have positive 2 because that sign is subtracting. So I'm going to put the opposite of whatever signs are there. Let's look at the second one. I'm going to rewrite the formula. So I can tell just by looking at this that my slope is negative 2/3. That's the number that's taking the place of m. Then my first coordinate point is going to be, remember I'm going to use the opposite sign, so because this is a subtraction, I'm going to put positive 6 as my new x value, and then because this one's adding, I'm going to put negative 1 as my y value. So now we know how to find the slope and the initial point that it crosses through. So now we're ready to graph. The first step for graphing is going to be to plot your first point. Then we're going to use our slope, remember that's the rise over run, to find a second point and then graph it. So let's find our first point. Remember, that's our x1, y1. And that point for us is the opposite of subtracting 3, so positive 3, comma, the opposite of the positive sign is negative 4. So our first point is 3, negative 4. And our slope is 5/2, 5 over 2. So our first step is to plot our first point. Starting with x, I'm going to go over 3. So 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to go down to negative 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Next, I'm going to use my slope to find the second point. So remember, rise over run. So since this is positive 5, that means I'm going up 5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then my run is how many times I'm going to the right. So I'm going to go right 2 times. 1, 2. And I found my second point, so now I can draw my line. Let's do that again. We want to find our first point. So we have the opposite of positive 4 would be negative 4. And the opposite of negative 2 would be positive 2. So x comma y. And then our slope is going to be negative 3. Because I like to use rise over run to find the second point, I'm going to turn this into a fraction. So I'm going to make this negative 3 over 1. I like to have my slope written as a fraction. So now to graph, I'm going to plot my first point, which is negative 4. So from 0, negative 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is x would be negative 4. And then because the y is positive, I'm going to go up 2. So 1, 2. Now we're going to find our next point. So my rise is negative 3, meaning I'm going to go down 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to go over 1 time because my run is 1. And then to make another point, I could just keep doing that. So 1, 2, 3, 1. Down 3, over 1. Down 3, over 1. So notice it ends up looking like stairs, but now I have a line. And now we have our last 2. So our first point is going to be the opposite of positive 5 would be negative 5. The opposite of positive 1 would be negative 1. So our first point is negative 5, comma negative 1. And our m is 2. Our slope is 2. But I like to use it as a fraction, so I'm going to write 2 over 1. So to graph, our first point is negative 5, comma negative 1. So now, to find my second point, I'm going to use the slope. So 2 over 1. And now I have my second point, and I can keep doing that. Up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. So now I have a bunch of points, so I can draw my line. Let's do it again. My first point is going to be the opposite of negative 4 is positive 4. The opposite of positive 4 is negative 4. And then my slope is negative 1/4. So I'm going to include the sign as a part of the numerator. So negative 1, comma 4. Let's plot our first point. Positive 4, negative 4. So now I'm going to plot points using the slope. So down 1 over 4. Now that I have a second point, I can go ahead and graph my line. Good job.